you've got, so now you've got a happy environment, right? You've got a great relationship with the people you're supporting or your child or what have you. It's fun. So the activities are engaging. 2 foundational things. You've thought about motivation, right? You've thought about predictability. You've done lots of good front loading. Now let's talk a little bit about how you communicate, the way you're asking for things or teaching things, how a few kind of ideas or thoughts along the way there, and how important that is, and actually how much that ties into everything else we've talked about today. So just a few tips around communication here. So this is one that I find that I explain it and people go, of course, yes, of course that makes sense. That's totally intuitive, common sense. Yes, of course I would do this. And then you actually get out there and watch people coaching or teaching, and what people's default is, what a lot of people's default is when they are leading a group of children, is to stand up in front of the group and talk and talk and talk and talk. So, hey guys, we're going to do this, and we're going to start with this game, and we're going to do this, and when we're doing this, I want you to remember this, and blah, 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 blah. Literally like 11 sentences of instruction. And then they say to the kids, go. And some of the kids who are, really good listeners, really good verbal skills are okay, and they go off and do the thing. But there's a chunk of kids who don't. And, imagine this, if you will. Sometimes people's attention drifts. Now, of course, that's not true for any of you. But, of course, it is true for all of us. So the problem is, when I stand in front of a group and all I do is blah, 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 when your attention drifts, you've just totally missed everything I said, right? The words are gone. So that's why when you say go, some of the kids don't do the thing because their attention drifted and they missed it. The information has disappeared into thin air. So that's on my little slide there. That's the blue cloud. That's your cue to remember. Words just disappear. They're gone. You say it and they're gone. So when you're explaining something, you always, always, always need to show and say. Never just say, always show. Now, unless you're in a routine and you've done this thing many, many times before, kids have a lot of contextual cues. They're like, oh, I got this. I've done this a billion times before. That's different. But anytime you're teaching a new skill, you're doing an activity for the first time, this is very, very important. There are many, many possible ways to show and say. So again, this is you being the expert in knowing your child, knowing the kids that you're supporting. Most people's go-to when they think about show and say is to model. So in our programs, we see a lot of like, okay, everybody, we're going to throw the ball. So the first thing you want to do is elbow back, right? So now I'm just modeling, which is great. Modeling is an excellent go-to show and say. It won't be 100% successful all the time. So it's certainly a good idea to have some other ideas in your back pocket. Now, why does modeling sometimes not work? Because, God forbid, for a few seconds, the kids aren't looking at you anymore, right? They've, again, just lost the information. So a few ideas is a good thing. When you're teaching, another option you have is to draw a picture. I dropped my eraser. Sorry, dropped my eraser. So if you've got some key points that you want the kids to remember, draw it as you go. So when we teach kids throwing, we teach point, step, throw. So as I'm explaining this, I can write it down and draw it. Okay, when we're throwing, the first thing we have to do is point. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so I can draw a picture of the person. Oh, that's a great picture. Pointing. Okay, the next thing we do is step. Here's my big stepping leg. Wow, artist of the year right here, that's for sure. So point, step, and then throw. Notice I'm modeling as I go too. Nothing wrong with that. Whoa, there's the ball. Now, I'm pretty sure you're not going to be able to see the details there, which is definitely good. But the point is, that's show and say. So that's, I'm explaining, I'm modeling, I'm writing down the key points I want the kids to remember in a way that, if I've got kids who don't read, okay, they've got a picture to reference as well. What's beautiful about this is it stays, it's static, right? If I just did a verbal explanation of that, half the kids missed it because they weren't paying attention for whatever reason, right? Crowded, noisy environments, lots of things happening, okay? But now I have this, and I can teach it and then literally just put it right here, and the kids have it as a static reminder of the key steps and what we're doing right now. So referencing a picture, referencing a list, super awesome. And of course, that's true for, this is a skill breakdown, point, step, throw. But what if it's the beginning of the game and I want to remind the kids of, I'm front loading the kids with 3 expectations. Well, I could write those down too, right? So ball stays on the ground. This is also show and say, okay? We have to stay apart. 2 meters. And what else might I say? We need to pass. Might be my reminder that day. So here's the ball going this way. Pass. Okay, that's another form of show and say. So before the activity, this time I'm less concerned about, I'm not teaching a skill, I'm not doing point, step, throw, but I'm still using show and say to show key expectations that I want the kids to remember. And it's static. If I had just said it, some of the kids would have missed some of what I said, and there's no hope then that they're going to be able to follow through with those things in the activity. If I have this, I have some hope. Another version of show and say that's talked about less often, but is very, very powerful, is video modeling. So I gave you that one example right at the beginning about the little guy and surfing. That's video modeling. As much as that's front loading and preparing in advance and knowing what to expect, he also learned a skill by watching a video. So video modeling is an amazingly powerful show and say. So instead of just, again, hearing instruction, verbal, blah, 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 the kid is hearing the instruction on YouTube. So, okay, when we learn to surf, the first thing we do is push up, and he's watching someone do it at the same time. So video modeling, also extremely powerful. Video modeling can be as simple as, I can get my iPhone and film a volunteer doing it who's competent at the skill. There's also that magical world of YouTube. So lots of simple ways to create video models. Here's a bunch of examples of show and say. So today, I am doing show and say because goodness knows I'm doing a lot of blah, 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 blah. And goodness knows that I'm 100% positive your attention is drifting. I don't see how it would be even remotely possible in this format that I would have 100% of your attention for every single minute. But what's the good news is, if you drift off or you're distracted, you can come back, look at the slide, and you pretty much know what I'm talking about, right? There's a visual there that pulls you back into what I'm talking about. That's show and say. I put a picture up there of a whiteboard and a hockey drill. That's show and say. That can be a very complicated show and say, but it is. It's the coach, instead of the coach just relying on standing there and saying, okay, I want half of you in one corner and half of you in the other corner with the pucks, and you're going to take the puck and skate to the blue line, and then you're going to make a pass, blah, 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 right? That's hope. There's no way people could take in that much information. But if the hockey coach says, okay, we're going to start with all the pucks in the corner. You're going to make a pass to the first person in this line. And then you're going to skate here and take a shot on the net. That's so much more helpful. So much more clear. And then what should he or she follow that with? A model, right? You're still going to do modeling. You're still going to do demonstration. But that's a much better show and say than just blah, 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 blah. Okay? I'm really droning on about show and say because truly it is the #1 mistake that I see new coaches especially making. So if we're talking about sport and recreation, most people's instinctive thing to do is stand in front of a group of kids and talk way too much. Like way, way, way too much verbal explanation without enough visual, concrete things that make it easy for the kids to follow along. Kids are probably more distracted than they've ever been. So we have to have ways to help them take the information in that account for the fact that their attention's going to drift. It's going to drift in and out of following you along verbally. Okay. Now recall again, visual cues. We talked about this way at the beginning when we talked about COVID, and we talked about how there's so many visual cues now, absolutely everywhere in the whole world, that tell us, that show us what we're supposed to do. So visual cues are awesome. They are like a show without needing to say. I don't even need someone, like when I step outside in the hallway here, I don't need someone to say to me, okay, Stephanie, like you need to follow the arrows this way, and then when you're waiting for the elevator, you have to stand in one of the boxes. And then when you enter the elevator, one person stands here and one person stands here. I don't need someone to explain that to me. Why? Because there's stickers on the ground that give me all that information. Literally, right outside the door, there's all of those stickers exist. So that's awesome. Anytime you can reduce the need for people to have to stand and listen and concentrate on what you're saying, that's actually really hard. And now, I'm talking about all humans right now, but imagine you're talking about supporting a child who might actually have challenges with spoken language, challenges with listening and being able to understand and interpret what you're saying. And, if you've got a child who struggles like that, they're also probably also simultaneously managing this noisy environment, the fact that these are unfamiliar people, it's a new activity, and I have to be able to sit there and listen to you perfectly and verbally process everything you're saying, right? That's hard. And we wonder why kids miss instructions and aren't following along, okay? So with the show and say is so important. Add your visual cues, makes it so much easier. Beyond visual cues, everyone now is so familiar with the arrows and stuff. I don't ever need to give those as examples anymore. But there's lots and lots of visual cues you can add in to basically any activity you can think of if you're creative. So I'll give you a few examples of things we've used in our sport and recreation programs. So hockey, right? A huge mistake a lot of kids make when they're first learning is they don't keep two hands on their stick. So we just take colored tape and put tape on the two spots where their hands are supposed to be. So instead of following them around and being like, 2 hands on your stick, 2 hands on your stick, 2 hands on your stick, they have this visual cue that is constantly with them that really supports them remembering to have 2 hands on their stick. We do things like taking a piece of, like the green painter's tape. We have that in all of our coaching bags. And when we're doing soccer and we're teaching kids about where the ball is supposed to contact their foot when they're dribbling, we'll just take a little piece of the green tape and stick it on the inside of their shoe near the toe, right? So instead of needing to be able to, understand that verbal instruction of, okay, no, the ball is supposed to contact your foot just in the inside of your foot near your toe. That was like blah, 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 right? I can just put the tape on my shoe to start and model and say, watch this, tap, 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 tap. And I'm referencing the spot on my foot. That's a heck of a lot less verbal information for the child to need to take in. It's much more clear because they can see where the ball is supposed to be. And then I can stick the tape on their foot and have them have a go. You see in the picture hula hoops. We've been using hula hoops before COVID. Now everyone uses hula hoops during COVID to show the kids where to sit. But those are awesome because it's just a really clear way to help kids be more spaced out. If you've gone to a preschool or a daycare, you've probably seen, those circle mats that have all kinds of cute designs. Some of them are rainbows or numbers or what have you, and they can tell the kids, they can direct them to sit on a number or something, and those are all beautifully spaced out, which helps the kids sit in a circle. All these things are visual cues, and all of them are super supportive because it just, again, it reduces that constant demand for needing to understand and listen. Now, in all honesty, this is the number one topic that I'm going to talk about today that most people listen to me explain it and they say, perfect sense, Stephanie. I buy it. I'm 100% bought in. Yes. And then you will go back to your place of being and you will do exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll find yourself explaining something, whether it's to a group of kids or to just your child, and you'll realize, oh, I'm doing that like Charlie Brown thing where I go wah 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 wah, right? And all the kids hear is wah wah wah, right? So like really plant this one in your brain, and that's why I wanted to do a quick stop here and hear from you. What is your child's show and say, or what's your go-to show and say? Awesome. So modeling dominating the vote today. That certainly makes sense to me. Just remember, modeling is awesome for new physical skills that you're teaching, but you usually cannot model things like expectations or rules that you're front loading before a game. So that's probably going to be the trap where you end up in wah. So remember, next time you're front loading rules or you're explaining rules of a game or something, you got to find a different show and say. You're not going to be able to model. So maybe it's this, right? Maybe it's writing some keywords.